What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. Warriors really controlled the entire game against the Clippers. This is kind of some of the stuff with the NBA regular season, right? Like, the Kings win this crazy wild game on a game winner on a wild comeback against the Warriors. Then they have to turn around and play the Clippers the next night. They get their butts kicked by the Clippers, who then have to turn around and play the Warriors the next night. And they obviously end up come out kind of flat and get controlled throughout the game. A lot of this stuff is just kind of natural stuff that you see throughout the regular season. But you're not going to hear any complaining about that from Warriors fans who've played the toughest schedule in the league to this point and could use a couple of schedule wins in the over the course of the next couple of weeks, right? The Clippers did briefly get it back to 5 with about 4.5 minutes left, but then the Warriors immediately executed to perfection to put it away. It was 100-105 with about 4.5 minutes left. Steph starts picking on James Harden. And on the first one, the Clippers end up doubling, and Moses Moody slips to the basket. Really nice feed from Steph. And then Moody threw a fake lob pass to Draymond Green that just got Zubac to hesitate, which allowed him to shoot that little floater over the top. On the other end of the floor, James Harden tries to pick on Steph, and Steph just like straight up locks him up. And Podziemski ended up kind of offering a token double team at the end of the possession, even though Steph didn't need it, and they could get away with that because it was Russ on the floor. The ball just kind of got swung around to Russ in the corner, who missed the three. He's been missing his jump shot for a while after getting off to a hot start this season. And then the next possession, Paul George does not want to concede that situation with James Harden where there's a double team. They don't want to give away that pocket pass anymore. So Harden's going to hedge and recover, which is what most teams do on guard-to-guard screens when they're trying to protect a weak defender. And so right as Paul George is starting to try to get over the top of that screen, Steph just whips it back between the legs to the left and goes over, it gets downhill, just right down to the rim, gets into Zubac's chest and takes this like crazy bump and then scoops it off the glass with his right hand. They go down to the other end of the floor, and Moses Moody gets a nice defensive sequence on James Harden. And then Steph and Moody kind of double team Paul George to contain him. And again, you're able to kind of offer a lot more help with Russell Westbrook on the floor. And then it ends up in James Harden's hands on the right wing. Podziemski ends up almost swiping the ball away. It's kind of a break rhythm situation, and James Harden misses the three. Then they go back down to the other end, and Steph just dances on Paul George in an ISO right as he's hopping to the right. And again, like that's a big no-no with defense. You want to chop your feet, not hop, because if you hop, you don't have any ability to quickly plant. Steph hit him with the left to right crossover right as he hopped, and he was just downhill, and then he just took a little pull-up 15-foot jump shot. PG was pursuing from the left, and he ended up picking up a foul, went to the foul line. Next thing you know, the Warriors are up 10 and the game's over, right? But again, a little bit of a schedule loss there for the Clippers coming off of a back-to-back. This is kind of stuff that happens over the course of the regular season. That said, like, people have asked me, not just about the Warriors, but about the Lakers as well, why I haven't reacted much to their regular season struggles. And to be honest, it's because both teams have dealt with unfortunate circumstances. And in spite of that, they've had key, trends that I view as not just positive, but more important in the bigger picture than whatever's happening in this handful of regular season games. For instance, I'll hit the Laker ones later when we talk Lakers. But for the Warriors, Draymond Green is shooting lights out. He wants to shoot. First possession of the game, he's kind of hanging out around the top of the key. And you could see him. He's like clapping and asking for the ball. He wants to shoot the ball right now. Knocks down his first three at the top of the key. There was another one he took in the corner against Kawhi Leonard like 2 possessions later. Kawhi closes out hard at him, and he just rises up and knocks down the shot. He's shooting 70% in effective field goal percentage on catch-and-shoot jumpers this year, and he's the most confident I've seen him with that shot since the 2016 season. I think that is the type of trend that could be a real ceiling raiser when they get to the later rounds of the postseason. Don't forget what the Lakers did to the Warriors last year, just ignoring Kevon Looney and Draymond Green anytime they were at the three-point line, right? Like, we remember in the 2016 season in that playoff run how important Draymond Green's three-point shooting was, right? Like, it's just one of those things that's an important ceiling raiser for this team. And that, to me, is a more encouraging trend than some of the other negative stuff that we've seen here in the early stretch of the season. And specifically taking contested shots, like, I talked about the one in the corner with Kawhi where Kawhi's closing out at him. He's 7 for 14 on contested catch and shoot jump shots this year. So really, really encouraging trend from Draymond Green. Klay Thompson, after not scoring 20 points at all in the first 14 games of the season, he's done it 4 times in the last 5 games. That's a really encouraging trend. Brandon Podziemski, straight up looks like a bona fide rotation piece that can hold up on both ends of the floor. I thought he played a great game against the Clippers last night. He guarded Kawhi a bunch in switches. Podziemski's kind of bigger than you would think, especially for a rookie guard. He's pretty well built. He's tall enough to hold his own in switches against some of the bigger, stronger perimeter players that you see in the league. He's a good rebounder. He fits perfectly in the offense. He's a smart cutter. There was a play where he was kind of running along the left wing and he identified that PG was kind of trailing him in transition. And I can't remember who it was, but another Warrior kind of cut through along the baseline. And so there was an opening there. And obviously Steph had the ball. Steph's a good passer. B-Pod just immediately recognized it, cut to the basket along the backside there on the left. Steph hit him in stride for a bucket. He's knocking down his 3-point shot. He can pass the ball well. The Podziemski thing is really exciting, not just in the short term with Gary Payton Jr. being out, Gary Payton II being out, but also just in the sense that he kind of, to me, represents a version of what Dante DiVincenzo was for this team, but a little bit more stout in his ability to defend bigger wings. And I think that could be a real asset to this team. I also think he's a better passer and a little bit better fit overall offensively within the Warriors. It's been little things like that can go a long way to making up for big mistakes like the James Wiseman pick, right? And obviously it's early. Obviously you hope for more even than Podziemski from a number 2 overall pick, but all you can do after you make a mistake is try to make up for it with wins after the fact. And I look at the Podziemski pick and his early kind of popping with this Warriors team as a win in that regard. Moses Moody is playing well. Did you know Moses Moody is 13 for 17 on pull-up jump shots this year? He's been a smart offensive player off the ball in the terms that he kind of just fits more in the flow of the offense than Jonathan Kuminga does. His jump shot is he's well over 1.1 points per jump shot this year. That's a really encouraging thing. Held up good on an island defensively. Had a good defensive possession against James Harden late in the game. Had a good defensive possession on Paul George late in the game. Moses Moody's playing well. And then Steph is still at his ceiling. I had a guy in the comments 2 or 3 days ago that was like, Steph isn't as good as he was at his peak. And I suppose you might be able to convince me that he's a tiny percentage down from where he was in the 2022 season, but I don't really see that. He's still just toasting everybody off the dribble. Paul George could not keep him in front last night. He finished the game off with an ISO of James Harden after they kind of briefly got it back to 7, where he just dribbled right around him to the right to his scoop shot. I would say that Steph is actually better at weaponizing his handle and jump shot to beat people off the dribble now than he ever has been. And when you factor that into he's getting the defense in rotation in 2 ways, not just pulling 2 defenders out in terms of blitzes like that slip for Moses Moody, but also just getting downhill and drawing multiple defenders in rim pressure. I think Steph is every bit as good as he's ever been. And then Andrew Wiggins, I know he missed this game with his sore finger, and that's kind of weird. I don't know what's going on there, but 2 of his last 4 games were really great games, his best games of the season. And I thought he played extremely well in that Kings game. And we even got good news about Gary Payton's calf muscle. That there was that weird report that he tore it. And then we heard that it was a strain and that he's probably going to be reevaluated in a couple weeks. So that's great news as well. That kind of makes it so that you don't have to be as worried about the type of player you're trying to go after in the draft. You don't necessarily have to get this insane perimeter defender. You can look for more of a scoring forward there. That's why I still like the Lauri Markkanen idea, the Jeremy Grant idea for that specific slot. You can be more patient towards the deadline. They have the 6th easiest remaining schedule in the league. Good times are ahead for the Warriors, and this is why we don't overreact to regular season trends. I guarantee you there's going to be a bunch of people listening to this video expecting me to talk about how the Lakers suck. And it's I'm not going to talk about how the Lakers suck when they played their 4th game on the road, their last game of a long road trip, tail end of a back-to-back, 5 key rotation players out. They had 7 rotation players in uniform. If you want to pretend like that's some sweeping representation of what the Lakers are, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you, but you're not going to get me on the show, acting like the sky is falling over weird stuff that happens in the regular season. The Warriors had a really unfortunate start to the year. They're still really good. They're not going anywhere. Do they need to make a trade to like truly contend at the highest levels against people like Denver and Boston? Yeah, but I could say the same thing about the Milwaukee Bucks. I could say the same thing about the Lakers. Like that's a pretty typical problem in the NBA. Only one team gets to hoist the trophy. There's usually a group of teams that are ahead of everybody else, right? And I just think that the Warriors are more or less in a typical stretch of what happens during the regular season. Theirs just happened at the beginning of the year, and it could just be so much worse. And so I never really understood the negativity that I was seeing. On the Clippers front, still a ton of issues. They're defending pretty well since the Harden trade, 112.4 defensive rating. That ranks 9th in the NBA, but it completely falls apart in crunch time. And Steph attacking James Harden here, this isn't the first team to do that. He's been getting attacked in crunch time consistently here as of late. Their defensive rating falls to 119.1 when in clutch situations, which remembers when the game's within 5 with less than 5 minutes left. They're also not rebounding well since the Harden trade, which we talked about. They lost a lot of their forward depth, and so they suddenly have become a pretty damn small team. They are 21st in defensive rebounding percentage since the Harden trade, and even though they've gone small a ton over the years, pre-Harden trade, they were a great rebounding team. So I think that's pretty concerning. In clutch situations in particular, they are getting murdered on the glass. This is an insane stat. 45.8% of opponents' misses in crunch time against the Clippers are getting offensive rebounded. That's almost half. So they have to get like 1.5 stops per stop. Like it's completely insane. Like that's a huge problem. And then one of the weirder trends too is their clutch offense has been horrific, which is like the reason why you made this trend. To give you guys some perspective, last year they were the 4th best clutch offense in the league, up over 116 offensive rating. In 2 games before the Harden trade, they had a 122 offensive rating in crunch time, the 2 crunch time games that they played. And then so far, through 8 clutch games, a 91 offensive rating. And the main thing that's standing out to me is like, it's a lot of just standing and watching. Like they'll have Harden run a ball screen with anybody but Kawhi for whatever stupid reason. And then they'll James Harden will make a kick out pass to Terrence Mann or to Russell Westbrook being unguarded in the corner and the play will die. Because that's the thing is like Terrence Mann's getting treated a lot like Russell Westbrook in these situations. And then occasionally they'll be like, okay, fine, let's throw it to Kawhi Leonard for a possession and he'll take some post up jump shot. But like there's no flow. They can't decide who they want to go through at the end of these games. One of the things that was nice about crunch time pre-Harden trade is pretty simple. It was a classic your turn, my turn basketball with Paul George or Kawhi with a heavier usage for the guy that's having a better night. And it's just become a more complicated process after that. They are 5-8 since the trade. I know Clipper fans are going to be saying, hey, they just beat up the Kings last night or 2 nights ago. I'm not trying to undercut that by any stretch of the imagination, but the Kings were just coming off of this crazy emotional comeback win with a game winner from Malik Monk the night before against the Warriors in an in-season tournament game. Now, that doesn't delegitimize the win. My point is like, you're 5-8. And that one win against the Kings was followed up by you guys losing on your version of a back-to-back to the Warriors. So if you want that same leniency, that you got to give it to the same thing to the Kings, which is why we don't look at any one game single sample size result as any sort of sweeping declaration of any sort of team. We're looking at trends, and the trends are you're 5-8 since the Harden trade. You can't rebound. You really can't rebound in the clutch. Your defense is taking a step back, and it's really, really bad in the clutch. And it's just a boatload of issues. And I don't really necessarily see. I think that the offense has to come around. It's just a simple. I just refuse to believe that Harden, PG, and Kawhi and Norman Powell can struggle to score like this. I just refuse to believe it. Like that, they're gonna find ways to score, but the rebounding and defense stuff that you're seeing with those particular lineups, I don't necessarily see the personnel to turn that around. They're gonna keep attacking Harden at the end of games. You're gonna continue to struggle because you don't have the size to rebound. So those are things that I find legitimately concerning.